Welcome to the two-man game with Chris and Scott live on the Bleacher Report app. Hopefully, you guys are having a fantastic start to your week. Hopefully, you had a great holiday this past week. 4th of July was obviously a big one, but we're celebrating USA in a different way today, Scotty. We have Team USA basketball that's prepping for an Olympic run. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that here today on the Bleacher Report app. By the way, guys, we are also live on Twitch. If you want more content, go find us on Twitch. Action Lab on Twitch or actionlabsports.com is where you can find other different things that we do when it comes to talking sports. So make sure you tune into that as well. Every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, we are live on Twitch. But for today, welcome in, Scotty.
What's going on, Chris? How's everybody doing? Yeah, Chris, we finally have the Olympics creeping up here, and this might be the most loaded roster U.S. has had in a long time. So excited to get into it. It's not easy to pick a starting five, Chris. Any of these guys obviously are going to be worthy. So we're going to go into what we would do if we were Steve Kerr. We're just younger and more handsome, so that counts for something.
True.
And then we'll also talk about what we think that in reality the most likely starting five is. But I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and honestly, Team USA has underachieved, right? Like we haven't had a star-studded lineup like this in a long time. So the fact that it's everyone's deciding to play, it's getting other players to play for their respective teams. We have a stacked world going on with everything else in this Olympics. That we have Canada, which is looking insane. Canada's loaded with talent. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You got SGA. You got Jamal Murray from our Nuggets. That he's going to be solid. I mean, it's top to bottom. Lou Dort, Dylan Brooks, RJ Barrett. I mean, a ton of players. Then you got France you got the alien going on France. You got Victor Wembanyama leading the crew, but that's a stacked team. And then you got Serbia and Australia. Serbia, obviously, Jokic leading that team. They're always pretty primed and ready to go when it comes to playing with each other. They have that continuity that they've built. But basically, the USA felt like they had to come out and throw the A team out here, literally. So we're going to be breaking that down on what we think is going to be the most effective lineup, and then also compare it to what we think is going to be the lineup that is actually chosen by the coaches. So we'll get to that as well. But thoughts on you? I mean, it's a pretty much a shoo-in that USA should win this gold medal.
I mean, they're heavy favorites, Chris. You never know. Sometimes with international ball, it's just so different than the NBA. Plus, these guys obviously don't play nearly as much together as some of these other international squads do. So sometimes the fit doesn't work. But listen, I mean, we got to go back to 2004, the last time the U.S. didn't win the Olympic gold in men's basketball. And they're terrified to repeat that performance where only like Tim Duncan showed up for that team. The rest of the team played awful in that one. So they got a loaded roster. It's interesting, Chris, because this could be, for a lot of these guys, there's a juxtapose of we got a lot of vets on this roster. A lot of guys like this is probably their last run, right? Like last chance at playing in the Olympics for Team USA. When you talk about your LeBron, your Curry, your KD, like some of these guys that are getting up there in age, this might be it for them. So they're going to do everything they can to bring the gold home.
Yeah, and crazy enough, there may be some DNPs on this. there may be some superstars that don't even get that much playing time. They get garbage time at the end of the game. But either way, that just shows you how stacked it is. You guys are throwing out all of your top five in the chat. A lot of talk about Embiid, Tatum, AD, best center on the team, but talent-wise, put Joel. Yeah, and Joel, I mean, it's kind of crazy that he's on the USA roster, but he made the cut. He made the cut. Ant, Curry, Embiid, KD, Braun. So, yeah, keep throwing out your top five. I love Zibby put out all Embiid. Embiid starts every position.
That's going to be difficult.
It seems tough.
It sounds like a problem for us, but the shooting may not be there at all times.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the starting five that we think has the most effective, one of the best chances when it comes to just how it's constructed. we were kind of going back and forth. I've seen them all over the place, starting fives. So here's and keep yours coming in the chat. We want to see all of them. What your thoughts are on who you think should be in the starting five. But when we were talking about it last night, Sky, we were kind of going through, and obviously the two guards, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, are two that I think. Well, one, Steph Curry, best shooter to ever play. Then you have Anthony Edwards coming in. He can do a little bit of everything. This was his coming out year this year. This was one of the best performances from a young kid that, taken the Minnesota Timberwolves all the way to the Western Conference Finals. Then you have LeBron James. He's starting. Damn well LeBron James is starting in this lineup. And then we have Jason Tatum. It was between Tatum and KD. Obviously, Jason Tatum offers a little more defensive prowess. And he does a lot of facility. We'll get to him in a minute. And Joel Embiid, who I think is the best center on here. I mean, if you look at the MVP race over the last 2 or 3 years, he's in the mix every single time. And he just defensively locks down. Offensively, he can just do so many things. So Joel Embiid at the center. Scotty, this is what we rolled out with.
I mean, yeah, listen, this lineups can wreak havoc on anything. And you talked about the one that was most difficult was probably Tatum versus Durant. A couple of things there. First, Durant has had some calf stuff in practice and hasn't been healthy. So you might want to, limit his minutes, especially as we get into the group stage where, listen, the U.S. is getting out of their group stage. Outside of Serbia, I don't think they're going to have a lot of difficulty getting through the other two teams in their pool bracket. It's tough, Chris, because Durant literally led the entire competition in the Olympics in men's basketball in points, in scoring average, the last 3 Olympics. So leaving him off the roster is not an easy thing. But then you get that scoring, that pop off the bench. As you kind of talked about, Tatum's a little bit more of a facilitator, can kind of dribble drive a little more, which goes wrong with what LeBron's going to do. LeBron's perfect for an Olympics in my mind. Like, to all, obviously LeBron's at the tail end of his career, still a phenomenal player, but not the peak, right? But in this, he doesn't have to do too much. He can facilitate, he can drive. It sounds like they're going to really start him as the point guard, as a point forward guard, bringing the ball up and let Curry work off ball a lot more to see how that works. And I don't hate that at all. Let Curry run around without the ball, get a guy tired, and get some open looks.
So yeah, and here's the thing too, guys. This isn't going to be the starting five. I mean, we surely do think that in the grand scheme of things, the coaching staff is going to put KD in there over Jason Tatum in this spot. So this is basically, just kind of one of those things where, we're trying to figure out from just you got to look at the lineup and how it breaks out. Like, how many ball handlers do you have? How many? And again, we got superstars on here, so they'll figure it out. But at the same time, I think otherwise, everything else seems to match up. Jason Tatum is kind of he's that kind of polarizing. You either love him or you don't, and you don't necessarily know how you want to put him in this lineup. But he kind of fits based off of the fact that what he did in the finals. I mean, look what he did in the finals. He couldn't score, really. I mean, you have 5 dudes on this starting 5 that can score at will if they really wanted to. Now, do you need 5 guys that are going to score at will every single game? No, you need some guys that are going to take a back seat. Jason Tatum took a back seat in scoring in some of those playoff series across the Eastern Conference. So, you can have somebody who comes in, he does some of the right things when it comes to getting rebounds and being able to facilitate a little bit from his standpoint. I mean, not every one of these guys is going to score, 30 points each game. I mean, they might blow out these teams.
That would
by
be
100.
a lot of points, Chris. That would be a lot of points. I don't think
that would be a lot of points. So, and KD can facilitate too. I think maybe splitting hairs a little bit. I think if it were my lineup, obviously, I just feel like KD's going to get that nod when it comes to USA.
I think with the coaching staff, he's a lock if he's healthy. As long as he's healthy and ready to go, KD is going to end up being in this starting lineup. Probably with these other 4 guys. The only one, I think Steph, LeBron, KD, and Embiid are locks as far as what Steve Kerr's ultimately going to choose to at least start out the tournament. And then Anthony Edwards, you could nitpick, and some of this could be who they're playing. Like Chris, if we go up against France at some point in this tournament with Wemby and Gobert, do you maybe have Embiid and AD both starting in the lineup at that point for the size and defensive prowess to match up a little bit better against France, and maybe move off of either Tatum, Durant, or Edwards to have a bigger lineup? Like, I don't hate a lineup of like you leave Tatum, bring in Durant, take out Edward, and to put in AD against something like that, where you got size and no one's coming in that paint. When you have Embiid and AD protecting the paint, like, good luck, because you're going to have to make jump shots all day.
And that's a good point. I mean, different teams have different strengths. I mean, let's say you go up against a Canadian team that have, SGA and Jamal Murray. Maybe you opt for Anthony Edwards and you have Drew Holiday in there a little bit more frequently. I mean, I don't know if you start him over Steph, but either way, having a little bit more defense to throw at the two guards on Canada could be a different kind of strategy depending on how you want to approach, those types of teams. I mean, because you're going to get the advantages with the bigs, right? I mean, Kelly Olynyk and Trey Lyles aren't going to really be slowing down Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid. So, it also, again, you're right. It depends on the matchup. It depends on how, you want to approach each game, because it's going to have different strengths and weaknesses based off of who your opponents are.
Yeah. And we got a lot of back and forth on Embiid versus AD and what one brings over the other. I don't know. I think they're similar passing the ball. They both aren't great. I think Embiid's a little more reliable in the post. And just a little. Sometimes AD comes off soft to me, Chris. I'll say it. He's a little soft at times. Hell of a talent, hell of a player. But as Nuggets fans, we see it far too much where, like, he can dominate for a quarter and then he goes invisible for stretches, where Embiid is looking to dominate at all times. Speaking of dominate, Chris, the big press conference that everyone was talking about was Anthony Edwards, right? And his coming out and being like, I'm option one on this team. They gotta, I'm option one. What do you like? Obviously, listen, I love the confidence and the swagger from a young kid, first time on there. And we've talked about it a lot on our stream, Chris. He's a hell of a player, hell of a talent, and could be, he's going to be an MVP at some point, I think, in this league. But coming into this vet, roster, is that what you're looking for? Is a guy that's looking to be option one, or do you want a guy that's more going to facilitate and fit into the team dynamic?
Yeah, I feel like he does have the swagger. He does have the swagger, and he's coming in. He wants to be that guy. He's never played on a stacked roster like this. I think there's some learning curve on how to kind of be integrated in on some of the way that this offense is going to be running, and some of the way, if he's going to be the offensive guy, like how much of the coaches have drawn up for him, so on and so forth. I don't know. So that being said, yeah, I don't think it's going to be as easy for Ant to be the guy consistently over the course of this Olympic run as maybe most people think, or maybe he thinks. But either way, he's going to be a baller. He can play defense. He's electric. And this is what Team USA needs, is some electricity to get things going, especially in those like kind of grindy kind of games. One electric play changes everything. Big dunk, something along those lines. Alley-oops are going to be all over the place with this USA team. So athletic. But we were looking at some lineups.
Chris, we got in the chat, though, who are all the coaches for Team USA? So Steph Curry is going to stay in the starting lineup. Steve Kerr is the head coach for Team USA. And then you got some big name. I've made a joke to you before this, Chris. I'm like, the head coach isn't the best coach on this staff, because I think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach among these guys. You got Spoelstra, you got Tyronn Lue, and you got your boy Mark Few as a Gonzaga fan. That's the coaching staff for this USA team.
Solid coaching staff. I mean, you could argue Spoelstra is the best coach on this roster.
I don't know why you'd argue anybody else. No disrespect to Steve Kerr and what he's done in Golden State, but Spoelstra is a top 2-3 coach in the league in my mind, no doubt.
So Barberta in the chat, Halliburton as the point guard to run and distribute all the talented scorers would be the best strategy. I'll get to that in a second. As far as a playmaker goes, I just hope they don't fall into one-on-one basketball like these teams usually do. It's interesting that you say that because I would argue when it comes to playmaking, Halliburton is one of the better playmakers on this entire roster. I mean, he's kind of got that, passing ability that kind of really meshes well with, whoever he's playing with. I could see him potentially being one of the best guards in this lineup if they're going to give him a chance. I don't think he's going to get enough time. They're not going to throw him out there for extended minutes, I don't think. But coincidentally, ESPN has a little starting five generator, which I don't know if I trust very much.
I think it's broken, Chris.
It might be broken because I was playing around with it and I plugged in some of my lineup. I plugged in this lineup and it was like 42% a lineup score. And this is based off of Raptor, which is basically offense and defense stats. That's going to be, per 100 possessions and your effectiveness on the basketball court. And coincidentally enough, to your point on Halliburton, Edwards, James, Embiid, and Davis was the highest score I could put together before we were like playing around with the different lineups. And that was a 70.5% lineup score. Everything else was like in the 40s. Scotty, I think you did some that were in the 40s.
In that you use that same lineup and replace Halliburton with Steph, and it goes down to like 48. I'm like, all right, I'm not sure this generator. Sometimes when you just go off metrics, things get a little wiry. And not to mention that ESPN is also doing their projected 2024-25 Raptor ratings. So it's not even something they've necessarily done. It's projecting what they think they'll do this next season on their team. And everyone has different roles on their team. So that generator's broke. Don't use it.
But yeah, so again, the highest score I got was Halliburton, Edwards, James, Embiid, and Davis as a starting lineup, having figured out what the 100% one is. But I love Tyrese. Tyrese is a fantastic player. I mean, he's I wish that he would get a lot of time, and especially in this Olympics, just based off of the fact that, I mean, a pure fit for like distribution and playmaking with all of these guys around you. Oh man, he would be fantastic. I just don't know if he's going to get the time.
I do agree. There's not a lot of playmakers on this roster necessarily. Like that's their thing they're asked to do a lot. I mean, Curry could do it, but like true point guards, especially the LeBron's going to be asked to be kind of that in his starting lineup. And Halliburton coming off the bench is the one because Holiday is more of your defensive stopper at guard. Booker's pretty much just a scorer. So if they want a little more, ball movement and they look stagnant, going to Halliburton off the bench is a great idea in my mind.
I've also seen mixed lineups. I think we saw another lineup out there that someone put together that was all forwards and centers, which you're sacrificing a little bit of shooting with that. But hey, I mean, you could go big.
It was literally legit. LeBron, Tatum, Durant, AD, and Embiid, and I'm like, that's wild. That's a wild take. I don't know. I like everyone's 6'8" or bigger on that lineup, so that's great. But like, shooting is gonna be a problem.
Actually, David in the chat, just perfect timing here. Bigger lineups, definitely the best option, and play through bigs with Curry shooting. I like Ant Spark off the bench, lengthy wings with skill, and place defenders where you will see fit depending on matchups. Back to the bigs. No man on earth can stop Joel but himself with AD. I mean, and there's something to that too. I mean, the size is going to matter. I mean, and again, we have the best in. I mean, you throw Embiid next to Davis, and I don't think there's a team out there that could be getting into the paint at all. The way that's set up. I mean, that's a hell of a paint presence and rim protection option if you have Embiid and Davis side by side.
Yeah, and listen, part of the reason in the World Cup, the U.S. didn't fare and didn't get the results they wanted, losing in the semifinal, is because they got dominated on the boards. They, weren't good enough on the interior, and that just cannot happen with what this roster is right now. There is no excuse to not dominate in the paint. Especially if you have Embiid and Davis on the floor at the same time, there is zero chance that we shouldn't dominate inside. I mean, no, outside of Jokic and Serbia and France. Like, there's no one else that can match that size and talent on any close to that level. Not even close to that level. But it's going to be interesting, Chris, because we're going to get to see right away, because the U.S.'s first game, I believe, in the Olympics is on the 28th of this month against the guy on the wall behind you, Chris. I thought you were going to be Team USA, but you got Jokic behind you.
I got this
Serbia,
Jokic guy behind
they
me.
will open up against on the 28th. So that'll be a good kind of starting metric to see where this team's at and whether they've, this training camp they're having has melded this team into a cohesive team, or they're just a bunch of dudes trying to get theirs.
That'll be a fun game to start out in that group. By the way, guys, in the chat, I'm curious, which team? I think Canada seems to be a tough one with a ton of talent from the NBA. Which team do you feel gives Team USA, this roster, the most trouble when it comes to just the entire Olympics run? Who's going to be the toughest team? And I know, again, USA should run the table on all of them, but who's going to give them the most trouble? We haven't even talked about, what's crazy? We haven't even talked about Devin Booker, Bam Adebayo. We haven't even talked about, some of these
Kawhi defensive presence and solid player off the bench. Chris, here's a question for you. Who do you think ends up getting the least amount of minutes in this tournament for Team USA?
Ooh. The least amount of minutes. Oof. That's a great question. I would probably say Bam, maybe. Bam is just locked in behind some. Oh man,
yeah. Obviously, he's kind of behind unless you're playing AD at the 4. He's behind a couple guys, so Bam getting run might be a problem. It'll be interesting how Booker fits into this, because he's more of just your legit scorer. So I could see him getting run if we're struggling offensively. But if we're playing well offensively without Booker, I don't know what his role would necessarily be here. And then you got Holiday. That might be more of a matchup. Like, if we need
Holiday's a matchup. Yeah.
If we got a guard that's just dominating us, or we need to put him on. And then Kawhi. We don't want Kawhi to get hurt before the season, Chris. So if
Kawhi needs to stay fresh.
He needs to stay fresh. He's not getting any younger. It might be Kawhi. Kawhi might be fine with that. He's like, I just want to be on the roster.
Have you seen Kawhi recently? He's like in another country, just chilling on the side of the road, doing some things with this, like Kawhi might just be chilling on this trip. He might just be hanging out, saying, yeah, if you need me, call me, but I'm good. Kawhi load managing already, right, Zibby?
Yes,
it's already happening.
I'm surprised he's playing, to be honest. I'm surprised he agreed to play. He just doesn't give off that vibes of like wanting to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I would say probably Bam. Maybe I didn't want to say Kawhi, but I feel like Kawhi is probably going to be on the lower end of the minute scale. And I wonder how many of these guys have injuries. I think is Embiid always kind of battling through something. So maybe,
obviously he had the knee thing where he wasn't healthy through the playoffs when he tried to come back from it. So I haven't heard a lot on his status being not great, but C. Brown Kerr is going to load manage all the older players. Very well could. I mean, you got some age on this team between Durant at 35, Kawhi 33, LeBron at 87. I think that's his age. I'd have to double check LeBron's age, but I feel like it's around 87. You definitely have some vets on this roster. So maybe getting some youth out there to run around for a bit might not be the worst thing.
Let's see. Embiid is going to be hella load managed, or at least I hope he is. Halliburton instead of Edwards, and maybe Durant instead of James. I mean, you can't not start James. He's the one that put this team together, right? I mean, he's the one.
James
if LeBron
would not
didn't declare.
He would go home. He would go home, Chris. If game 1 he's not in the starting lineup, he'd be like, all right, I'm out. I'm gonna go. He's probably already mad that Bronny didn't make the roster. Like, he's probably upset about Bronny not being on.
Where's Bronny on the roster?
Bronny not making it.
Oh my goodness! Why?
I hear Bronny is just crushing it in the summer league. So.
Poor Bronny. Poor Bronny. Guys, by the way, you were saying who gives the USA most trouble? France, Serbia, Canada. Those are the three kind of big ones. I think you mentioned France. France was
Germany, for
another
whatever
one.
reason, plays pretty. I mean, I think Germany won
Germany won previously in
the World Cup last
FIBA.
year, the FIBA World Cup. In 2023. So they're going to be a problem. And listen, Chris, they played Serbia in that final, and you know what? Who wasn't on Serbia for that tournament?
Jokic.
So Serbia is going to be a problem. I mean, the guards and wings you have in Canada, I think Canada is going to have a really bad situation if they try and match up size-wise with the U.S. because they don't have that size in the interior. But, I mean, a starting backcourt of SGA and Jamal Murray is pretty damn filthy.
I mean, and Canada looks fantastic outside of maybe I just don't think their bigs can compete with the bigs of Team USA. I think the guards can do some things as far as SGA and Murray, but
and their downfall might be Dylan Brooks just hoisting up shots all the time.
Oh, Brooksy just throwing up stuff.
Loves to throw stuff up. That could be a problem for him. Stop shooting, Dylan. You're here for defense.
Germany cooked Ant as option 1 in FIBA. Germany is running back a similar team, and Ant is now option 7 on US. Not according to him. Not according to
according to Ant, he's option 1.
He's option 1, 2,
alpha.
3.
He is the alpha, the omega, all the things.
Yes. I mean, he's the man. So guys, keep your starting 5 lineups coming in. I feel like everyone's again, there's so many different ways. I mean, we could blow it up and just start it with some rando and we still have a really good team, like a random lineup, and be like, all right, like darts at a dartboard, and you'll probably come up with a decent starting lineup that can compete against anybody in the world. So, I mean, that's just how good and deep this question is. Question.
David's got a question. Yep.
Yeah. How surprised would you be if USA wiped everyone out, but by 10 plus? To me, that's not far-fetched given how this team is. No, I think this is, given how much the USA has struggled, international competition over the recent years. I mean, this is the fact that they put together this team. Now, we haven't even talked about, if this team doesn't win, will this be one of the biggest disappointments ever? I mean,
that would be catastrophic. Like,
that would be if Team USA somehow finds a way to not win gold in this might be one of the worst catastrophic international outcomes ever.
I remember 2004, Chris, and how terrible the U.S. team played in that tournament. And to have a repeat of that would be absolutely ridiculous with this team. Now, the 10 plus per game. Listen, if this team had a whole offseason and weeks and months and like played some games together to get, all on the same page and play together, absolutely they would win by 10 plus. Having a little training camp and trying to fit everything in and a lot of egos on this team, I think if you're just basing it off talent, of course, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to have some battles. Might be good to, in game 1, have a battle against Serbia to just kind of get a little bit of a wake-up call. I wouldn't hate that. Win the game, obviously, but they're going to have some stretches where they're going to struggle a little bit. So I don't see them winning every game by 10 double digits.
There'll be some close ones. Now, this Team USA with LeBron, KD, Curry, there's so many different ways you can build this lineup. But that being said, it's coming down to it to the end of the show here. So, guys, this will be a lot of fun to watch this team, and this is the best team we've ever. Not ever, because now Dream Team. We got that Dream Team. I can't.
Got the Dream Team. Be careful.
This is the best team we've seen. Now that's an interesting one. How would this stack up against the Dream Team? Obviously, Dream Team's stacked. Real quick before we leave, who wins, the Dream Team or this? Chat. Who tell us who you think between the Dream Team and this 2024 USA Men's National Team. Who wins that? Who wins that game? I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
Chris, I'm usually on going old school and picking all that. I don't know if I can. Keep in mind that Dream Team, like, Bird and Magic were at the end of their careers then. They weren't peak Bird and Magic or even close to that. Maybe if you get peak those guys, it's different. But I think I take this roster. Now, let's see what they do. And they're playing against a lot tougher teams because back in 92, the world was far, far behind the U.S. as far as basketball. They've come a long way in these 30 years.
Dairon says 2024 team by 30. No shot.
I don't think Jordan's letting any team win by 30 or lose or hit any of his teams lose by 30.
Jordan will foul out in an international competition or like a head-to-head matchup in this one.
He probably will.
In the era 92, I think the Dream Team would win. If it's today's softer style, I think this one. Interesting. Yeah, I mean this team is incredible. So, but hey, guys, thank you guys for being here on this show. It's incredible to talk a little bit of hoops with you guys each and every single time we pop on. Again, my name is Chris. This is Scott. We are the Two-Man Game. We are also live on Twitch 3 days a week. We are Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, and Sunday nights on Twitch it's called Action Lab. If you want to go check us out, go look it up right now, and then you can just give us a follow. You'll get all the notifications on that. But we also have actionlabsports.com is where you can find more of our content. But again, thank you for being here live on Bleacher Report with us, talking some starting five for Team USA. Go USA. Let's just bring home the gold. Come on. What are we doing? I mean, it's a gimme. Let's make it happen. Let's do it in dominating fashion and retain what has been ours for so long that we've lost recently.
If we start slipping in basketball as a U.S., Chris, I don't know where do we go from there? That's always been our sport. And guess what? Our soccer team still terrible.
We got to work on our soccer team. Can we get this team to go play soccer for us? Can we just get all of these?
Maybe a shot. All of these guys might get red cards by the end of the game because they just truck some of those soccer players. But
we need to figure out the Team USA soccer team for sure, because that's a work in progress. Anyways, love you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you back here in the Bleacher Report app next time. Love you guys.
Appreciate you all. Have a good one.